Today we're talking about something wild. 5 wrestlers that Chris Jericho absolutely hated. Each of these feuds came from some seriously crazy moments. From real-life tension backstage to heated fights that almost got physical, Jericho's had his fair share of enemies over the years. So let's jump right in and see what really went down between Jericho and these wrestlers he just couldn't get along with. Shawn Michaels. Jericho had always idolized Shawn Michaels growing up. He patterned his style after him. The flashy moves, the charisma, the show-stealing performances. But when Jericho returned to WWE in the early 2000s, he realized that being compared to his childhood hero wasn't praise anymore. It was an insult. He didn't want to be the next Shawn Michaels. He wanted to be better than Shawn Michaels. Their first major collision came in 2003. Jericho made it clear that he believed Michaels had become a washed-up veteran clinging to the spotlight, while Jericho was the future. The tension boiled over at WrestleMania 99, where they put on a wrestling masterpiece, a blend of athleticism, emotion, and storytelling that fans still talk about today. Jericho lost that match, but the story didn't end there. After the final bell, they shared a heartfelt embrace, and then Jericho kicked Michaels low, turning admiration into contempt in one brutal moment. Fast forward to 2008, their rivalry reignited. But this time it was darker, more personal, and shockingly real. Jericho accused Michaels of being a liar and manipulator, claiming HBK faked an injury to win matches. Things escalated when Jericho accidentally punched Michaels' wife, Rebecca, during a confrontation on Raw. That wasn't part of the script. Jericho actually broke her lip, and it sent the feud into overdrive. The two went to war in a brutal, unsanctioned match at Unforgiven 2008. Where Jericho's aggression reached a new level. Later that same night, he went on to win the World Heavyweight Championship, making him one of WWE's top villains. Their rivalry culminated in a legendary ladder match at No Mercy, closing their chapter with blood, emotion, and mutual respect. Kevin Owens. If you've ever wanted to see a friendship burn to the ground in front of millions, look no further than Chris Jericho's feud with Kevin Owens. What started as one of the most entertaining partnerships in modern WWE history turned into one of the most heartbreaking betrayals fans had seen in years. When Jericho returned to WWE in 2016, he wasn't exactly the same loudmouth rock star fans remembered. He was funnier, cockier, and more self-aware, walking around calling everyone stupid idiots and carrying his famous list of Jericho. Around that time, Kevin Owens was the brash new Universal Champion, a man who didn't trust anyone. But somehow these two clicked. Their chemistry was instant. On the mic, in the ring, even in their backstage skits. They became the ultimate odd couple. Owens was cold and serious. Jericho was loud and ridiculous. Together they were gold. For months, they dominated WWE programming. Jericho helped Owens retain his Universal title, interfered in matches, and took beatings for his best friend. Fans loved every bit of their bromance, their inside jokes, their matching scarves, their goofy celebrations. Jericho even called it the Festival of Friendship, a huge in-ring celebration to honor Owens and their bond. But then came that moment, one that every fan still remembers vividly. Owens presented Jericho with a small red gift box during the Festival of Friendship. Inside, a new list. But this one wasn't the list of Jericho. It was the list of KO, and the only name written on it was Chris Jericho. That silent realization on Jericho's face, the heartbreak, the confusion, and the betrayal became one of the most powerful moments in WWE storytelling. Owens brutally attacked him moments later, smashing him through a TV screen and ending their friendship in cold blood. Their feud carried into WrestleMania 33, where Jericho fought Owens for the United States Championship in an emotional, revenge-driven showdown. While Owens won, the real story was Jericho's evolution, from the clownish sidekick to the betrayed veteran whose heart had been ripped out on live TV. Jericho later called this storyline one of his favorites ever, and for good reason. It wasn't just wrestling, it was drama, comedy, emotion, and pain rolled into one. Fans laughed with them, then cried when it all fell apart. Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio stood for honor, respect, and the underdog spirit. Chris Jericho, on the other hand, was at his most arrogant and manipulative, a man who believed he was smarter and better than everyone else, especially the fans. Their feud began in 2009 during one of Jericho's most brilliant heel runs. He had reinvented himself from the loud rock star-like showman into a cold, bitter intellectual who looked down on everyone around him. Gone were the catchphrases and jokes. This was a darker, sharper Jericho who wore suits, spoke slowly and condescendingly, and called himself the best in the world at what I do. Rey Mysterio, meanwhile, was riding high as the Intercontinental Champion, adored by fans all over the world. Naturally, Jericho took aim at him. From the very start, Jericho mocked Rey's size, his style, and most of all, his mask. To Jericho, that mask wasn't a symbol of tradition, it was a weakness. He claimed Rey was hiding behind it, using it to avoid facing who he really was. The rivalry quickly became personal, and their matches were nothing short of classics. Their battles at Judgment Day, Extreme Rules, and the Bash in 2009 showcased some of the best storytelling of that era. Each match was fast-paced, creative, and filled with near falls that had the crowd on the edge of their seats. But what made it unforgettable was Jericho's mind games. In one of the most shocking moments in WWE history, during their match at Extreme Rules, Jericho managed to unmask Rey Mysterio mid-match, something almost sacred in lucha libre culture. For fans, that was like crossing a line you never touch. Jericho didn't just want to beat Rey, he wanted to humiliate him. He taunted him for weeks, holding the unmasking moment over Rey's head. But Mysterio wasn't done. At the Bash 2009, Rey put everything on the line. His mask against Jericho's Intercontinental Championship. In a thrilling, emotional showdown, Rey pulled off the impossible. He reclaimed his honor, outsmarted Jericho, and pinned him clean in the middle of the ring to regain the title. It was a fitting end to one of the most intense, story-driven rivalries either man ever had. The chemistry between them was incredible. Jericho's technical brilliance meshed perfectly with Rey's high-flying artistry. But beyond the moves and the matches, what made this feud special was its emotional depth. It was about pride, identity, and the struggle between respect and arrogance. In interviews years later, Jericho called Rey one of his favorite opponents, praising his creativity and professionalism. But during that 2009 run, Jericho made fans truly hate him. And that's exactly what he wanted. He turned the crowd's love for Rey into fuel for his own villainy, proving once again why he's one of the best storytellers in wrestling history. The Jericho-Mysterio rivalry wasn't about blood or betrayal, it was about beliefs. Jericho believed he could expose Rey as a fraud, but in the end, Rey exposed Jericho's ego instead. It was one of those rare feuds where both men came out looking like legends, because they were. Kevin Omega. When Chris Jericho showed up in New Japan Pro Wrestling to confront Kenny Omega in late 2017, the wrestling world collectively lost its mind. No one saw it coming. Jericho was a lifelong WWE guy, a loyal company man who'd spent nearly 2 decades under Vince McMahon's banner. Kenny Omega, on the other hand, was the face of NJPW's modern era, the self-proclaimed best bout machine, leader of the elite, and the top foreign star in Japan. So, when Jericho's video appeared on the big screen at the end of one of Omega's matches, calling him out for Wrestle Kingdom 12, it wasn't just a dream match. It was a moment that changed wrestling history. At first, fans didn't believe it was real, but it was. The Alpha versus Omega showdown was officially on. What made it so captivating was how real the tension felt. Jericho, in his mid-40s at the time, had nothing left to prove, or so everyone thought. But Jericho wasn't ready to be a nostalgia act. He wanted to reinvent himself again, and taking on Omega in Japan was the boldest way to do it. Jericho played the perfect villain, brash, brutal, and disrespectful. He called Omega overrated, insulted Japanese fans, and promised to end the hype once and for all. Kenny, cool and confident, saw Jericho as an outsider trying to steal his spotlight. It was more than a match. It was a clash of generations. A war between the old guard and the new wave. Their match at Wrestle Kingdom 12 in January 2018 delivered on every bit of that hype. It was wild, violent, and storytelling at its finest. Jericho, showing a mean streak fans hadn't seen in years, turned the ring into chaos, using chairs, tables, and pure aggression. Omega fought back with his trademark precision and athleticism. Every move felt huge. Every near fall made the crowd gasp. In the end, Omega picked up the win, but Jericho walked away looking just as strong, proving he could hang with the very best in the world, even outside WWE. But the story didn't end there. The chemistry between Jericho and Omega was too good for just one match. Jericho returned to NJPW later that year, attacking Omega again, this time in shocking fashion after Omega's victory over Kazuchika Okada. It set up another brutal encounter at Dominion 2019, but this time, Jericho came out on top, defeating Omega in another hard-hitting war. What made this feud truly legendary was what it represented. This wasn't just two wrestlers fighting, it was a turning point for the entire industry. When AEW was officially launched in 2019, both Jericho and Omega were at the heart of it. Their rivalry became one of the company's cornerstones, culminating in another classic showdown at AEW Double or Nothing 2019, where Jericho defeated Omega to become AEW's first ever world champion contender. For Jericho, it was proof that he could reinvent himself anywhere, anytime, against anyone. For Omega, it was a test of whether he could truly stand toe-to-toe with one of the greatest ever. Together, they delivered magic, not just in the ring, but in shaping the modern wrestling landscape. In the years since, Jericho has openly said his feud with Omega reignited his passion for wrestling. It gave him new creative freedom, new energy, and a whole new chapter in his career. And for fans, it gave us something unforgettable. The moment when two of the best in the world collided, and wrestling changed forever. Dean Malenko. The feud between Chris Jericho and Dean Malenko in WCW was a masterclass in character work and storytelling, a perfect blend of comedy, arrogance, and pure wrestling skill. It wasn't about world titles or blood feuds, it was about ego and Jericho's talent for turning even the quietest rival into a powerful story. In 1998, Dean Malenko was known as the Man of 1,000 Holds. He wasn't flashy or loud. He was a calm, technical genius, respected by fans and feared by opponents. Chris Jericho, on the other hand, was his polar opposite, loud, flamboyant, and desperate for attention. He decided the best way to make his name was to mock Malenko endlessly. That's where the magic began. Jericho bragged that he wasn't just as good as Malenko, he was better. Not the Man of 1,000 holds, but the Man of 1,004 holds. On live TV, Jericho unrolled a long sheet of paper and began reading out his list of holds, mixing real wrestling moves with nonsense like armbar, which he repeated dozens of times for laughs. The segment became one of the most famous promos of his WCW career. But the comedy soon turned serious. Jericho constantly taunted Malenko, calling him a loser after matches and even insulting his late father. When Malenko disappeared from TV, Jericho mocked him every week, until Malenko finally returned, disguised under a mask at Slamboree 1998. When he unmasked and attacked Jericho, the crowd erupted. Their feud turned Jericho into one of WCW's most entertaining villains and gave Malenko one of the biggest reactions of his career. It was classic wrestling storytelling. Simple, funny, emotional, and unforgettable, all built on Jericho's perfect blend of disrespect and charisma. And that's a wrap for today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an update. See you next time. Bye.